you so much for sharing with us. But we talk about just being open and honest about things in our life that we've learned along the way. How important is it for us to share our struggles with others and what things have worked for us throughout whatever journey we have in life?
You know, I'm thrilled to be here. I just believe that I don't believe in coincidence. They say that coincidence is God's way of remaining anonymous. So I always think that, you know, there's the signature there. Sometimes we don't see it. So I'm really grateful for the moment and our moment together. So you asked me a couple of things, and I'm going to answer. I'll get to you guys are Channel 3, so I'm gonna answer your question about what are the top 3 pieces of, and I wouldn't even, I mean, advice, but maybe of wisdom. And so you asked also, how do we know, you know, how do we take care of ourselves? And how are we honest with others? Well, you can't be honest with, so number 1 is honesty. When you say, you know, we're Channel 3, so we're talking about what are the top 3, honesty. But not with someone else, with the self. Because the greatest denial, the greatest lying, if you will, and I say lying with all compassion, because we're not lying usually because we're bad or because we're, you know, unhealthy. I mean, we're lying usually because we're afraid of the truth. And so honesty is the absolute foundation for all transformation. So number 1 is honesty. Number 2, with the self. Because forget being honest with other people. I mean, initially, it's a full-time job to learn how to know what is true for me. It's a full-time job. I tell people it's like 24/7, 365 days a year, 66 if it's leap year, to manage me, to know me, so that if I have time to be in your world, your life, your business, that means that I've managed me. I can tell you, I can tell your viewers, we don't have time to micromanage someone else's life because it's a distraction from living our own lives, really fully and awake and alive. So being honest with the self first, being awake. So how can I be honest? To be awake. So many of our feelings, we, you know, oh, I don't want to have that thought. And I'm saying, well, the only thing is you have the thought. So you know, when there are thoughts we don't want to have, I don't want to feel afraid. I don't want to feel angry. I don't want to dislike my mother. I don't want to be enraged with my sister. I don't want to feel this way about a racial issue or a sexism issue or a gender orientation issue. I mean, I want to be honest and fair. And okay, I get that we all want to be more than we are. What a huge burden. So to try and put on clothes of perfection when that's impossible, so it's a guarantee for failure. So to be awake, to be honest, and then this is the third, compassion. Because to be awake without compassion is brutal. If I can see the truth, but I see it not through the lens of compassion, it's brutal. If I have compassion, but I'm not awake, it's impotent. It's no good for anything. I can't do anything. I mean, I got a lot of love, but love that I can't use actively. So if I am honest and I'm awake and it is all wrapped up with compassion, we're talking about compassionate accountability. So I want to hold myself, you know, accountable, but not without compassion, because without compassion, the truth just, it feels like we will crumble. And in some ways, we will, because if there isn't kindness about our mistakes, yes, we make them. I mean, kindness and compassion about our parenting, where we look and we think, Lord, have mercy. What did I do to my child? What did I do to my grandchild? What messages did I put out? I didn't realize what I was doing. So if I can see that and there's no compassion, guess what? I'm not going to want to see it because it's going to hurt too much. If I'm compassionate and I'm tender with the ways in which I've dropped the ball as a parent, as a wife, as a coworker, as a citizen of the world, it is so much more likely that I can then take action and do something differently, if that makes sense.
It does. Wow. Honesty, being awake, and compassion.
Yeah.
That all wrap together.
Yeah, all wrapped together. And it will deal with the shame and the blame. You know, I call my work, my company is called Fearless One, and W-O-N, Fearless One, like we win. But to be fearless does not mean that we don't have fear. It means that we do it afraid, but, and understand, and I'm going to talk about this today, who's in your head. I always want to know, because the voices that say you can't, the voices that say give up, the voices that say you're not worthy, the voices that tell me, you know, not to, or that I you know, I'm too this, I'm not enough that. Whose voice is that? It's not mine. So loving parents, but not flawless parents. Loving grandparents, but not flawless grandparents. I mean, a society that has told me as a woman and as a black woman that there are things I can do, and that it has either directly or indirectly told me that there are things that I can't do. So all that's in my head. And so I've had to make a choice to figure out, how do I use the erase button, the delete button, the discard button, the junk file, I mean, so that I can get rid of things that are hindering me, that are hindering you, things that are telling us what I consider to be lies, the limitations. And again, this is not to say that we can do everything all at one time. We are not God, we are not super people, we are people. But people who, if we are managing the tapes in our own heads, can, if we are honest, and we are awake, and we are compassionate about all of our feelings, again, not just the ones we are comfortable with, but the ones that make us uneasy and uncomfortable, we find ourselves empowered in ways that we could not imagine, and really able to run the race that was given to us. Yeah.
That's my favorite scripture, Hebrews 12.
Yes.
Run the race set before us with endurance.
Yes.
Just really been huge in my weight loss journey, and I was sharing that with you.
Yes.
And we share that with our viewers, and we also highlight other viewers who have had really successful health and fitness journeys. But it's not easy to be that open at first, and you want to hold your story close to you. What would you say to other people who have experienced things and they have found that success, but they're afraid to share? They think of all the bad things that could happen if they share.
Sure.
What is the importance of being able to share that and hopefully inspire someone else who may be struggling?
You know, it's a great question, because the issue of safety in our lives is essential. I mean, you know, if we were going to add another number to our top three, I'd add safety. We have to figure out who's safe, and we have to figure out how to keep ourselves safe, which means, how can I find a person who I trust with all of me, with my holes, you know, and H-O-L-E-S, and we all have them, and our longing and our hunger to be whole, W-H-O-L-E, which is a holy, H-O-L-Y journey. And so not everyone is worthy of that story. There are people who are jealous for their own reasons. You're talking about weight loss, and a huge price that you paid not only to lose the weight over time in a healthy way, but the price you paid also to suffer with it. And so that's a sacred story that you want to figure out, not just you, but me, who is it that's worthy of my story? And in your capacity, you've been able to share it with all of your viewers, which is wonderful. But for people who are listening, who may have come from a family where there's a sibling who's been favored, and it's denied, of course. I mean, everyone is equal, but that's not always true. And so that person is saying, I'm not sure. I mean, something good happened. something good is shifting. Maybe they've watched your story and they've watched other people's stories and they think, I've got something to share, but every time I tell my wife, she shoots me down. So I kind of start shutting down. Or every time I tell my mother or my father, they tell me the glass half empty side of it. And I'm looking for a glass half full or maybe even full all the way. So part of learning to tell our stories is finding who is deserving of hearing it. I mean, starting to look around, we have fantasies about, this is my best friend, this is my family. I should be able to tell my mother everything. I don't know where the should came. I mean, I know where the should came from. I mean, I know the card stores that have and the commercials, and it's all warm and fuzzy and great. And then there's life. Then there's real life. And there are people who have warm, fuzzy connections with families and spouses and bosses, and then there are those who have bumpy, rocky stories. And so I think when we find a deserving person who doesn't have an agenda for our story other than to bear witness to it, because that's really what we are looking for, all of us, someone who will bear witness to our story and not try and make our story theirs or their story ours. Someone who says, again, you should feel, well, you should take your sister, you should do this with your family. And if those are the voices in your head, you might find yourself backing away because you're thinking, that doesn't feel safe. That in my reality doesn't feel safe. But maybe there's somebody at work who lights up for you. I mean, they are so in your corner. They really want the best for you. They don't just say it, but they are walking the walk and talking the talk. And that's the person that you say, you know what, I think I'm going to take a chance. And I want to tell them what I'm working on. I want to tell them that I've been depressed for like 20 years. I want to tell them, when you were sharing, that I use food for everything, to celebrate and to grieve. I didn't know the role of food. But I want to find the right person to say, I think I'm on to something about myself. And I want to share it. And I want to share it with the right person. And so finding the right person to share our sacred stories with is essential. Yeah, not everybody deserves the whole story. We have to learn that. We have to protect it like a jewel. Our stories are precious jewels. So you don't take your jewelry and just leave it out. I mean, people will steal it. They'll use it without permission. We have to do the same thing with our stories and with our suffering and with our joy. We have to decide who's worthy to be on the journey with us and who is not.
Wow.
Yeah, with honesty and being awake and with compassion. Yeah.
I'm going to be saying that over and over on the treadmill when I go to the gym after I eat this cheesecake.
That's good.
Yes.
But
yes,
that's good.
yes.
But that's balance.
Absolutely.
That's balance.
Absolutely.
This isn't about not having cheesecake. It's
No.
about when I have it, what I do after I've had it, why am I having it? Is it because I love cheesecake and I want to enjoy it, or am I wanting to self-medicate? And so it's a wonderful, we do need, mantras and we need play. That's the other thing I would add if we put a fifth. I mean, fun. There's got to be fun in the transformation of a life. There's got to be pleasure and joy and fun. And so it can't just be heavy. And, one of the things, I have a good friend who said if we ever went on a game show and they said, what is something about Dr. Robin that people would be surprised about? And so she was guessing and guessing, and I said, no, we would have lost the show. And she said, well, what is it? And I said, my sense of humor. And she said, everybody knows that about you. And I said, no, everyone who knows me well knows that about me. Because, again, Dr. Robin, whatever that means. And the Reverend Dr. Robin, you put that in the front. And it's like, she's got a sense of humor. It's like, oh, yeah. And so the playfulness in me, and we all need someone we can play with.
Yeah.
Thank you.
This has been incredible.
Thank you.
for touching my life today.
Thank you.
I
Well, thank you
appreciate
for touching mine and for doing what you do.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, for doing what you do and doing it healthy and being a witness for us all.
One day at a time.
That's all we
So,
can do.
yeah.
It's all there is.
It's a lot of fun. A lot of.
That's great.
It's
Your life has changed. You
It
and you
has.
changed your life.
It has, and it's